Welcome to my channel Starlight Sci-Fi Stories. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. The Great Hall of the Thaurix Empire was silent. Not the calm kind of silence, but the heavy kind. The kind that pressed down on the chest and made breathing feel slow and difficult. The air itself seemed to watch. Captain Elias Rook knelt at the center of the hall. His right knee rested on cold black stone. The floor was smooth, polished by centuries of alien rule, and faint red light flowed through thin lines carved into it. The light pulsed slowly, like the beat of a living heart. Blood dripped from Elias' forehead. It fell from his chin and struck the floor in quiet drops. Each drop spread into a dark stain against the glowing stone. No one moved to help him. No one spoke. Elias kept his head lowered, not in respect, but because lifting it hurt. His vision swam. His ears rang. His body trembled from pain and exhaustion. Around him stood the Thaurix court. They were tall, thin beings with long limbs and sharp, angular bodies. Their skin was pale silver, hard like polished metal. Their eyes were large and black, without warmth or mercy. Each one wore armor etched with symbols of rank and conquest. They looked down at Elias the way one might look at a broken tool. At the far end of the hall, raised above all others, stood the throne. It was grown, not built. Dark metal and bone twisted together, shaped into a towering seat that seemed alive. From it flowed the same red light that ran through the floor, brighter and stronger. Upon the throne sat Queen Zainara. She was larger than the others, older. Her presence filled the hall even while she remained still. Her crown was not gold or stone, but living crystal, rising from her skull like jagged flames. She watched the human in silence. Elias had come to this hall as an envoy of Earth. He had arrived in peace. He had arrived unarmed. He had believed their words. Just hours ago, he had stood tall in this same hall. Clean uniform, calm voice, hope in his chest. He had spoken of cooperation, of shared growth, of a future where humans and the Thaurix Empire could stand as allies. Queen Zainara had listened. She had smiled. That smile haunted him now. A sharp sound cracked through the hall. Pain exploded across Elias' back as a Thaurix guard struck him with the flat edge of a staff. His body lurched forward, hands slamming against the floor. The taste of iron filled his mouth. Laughter rippled through the court. Elias clenched his teeth. He did not cry out. He did not beg. Slowly, carefully, he pushed himself back upright, returning to his kneeling position. Blood dripped from his lip now, joining the stains on the floor. The guard stepped back. Queen Zainara rose from her throne. The movement was smooth and unhurried, yet every being in the hall reacted at once. The guards straightened. The court fell completely silent. Even the air seemed to freeze. She descended the steps toward Elias. Each step echoed like a drumbeat. Power radiated from her with every movement. She stopped just a few steps away, towering over the kneeling human. She looked down at him. Her voice when she spoke was sharp and cold, like metal scraping stone. "You are not worthy to touch me, mortal." Her words echoed through the hall. Elias lifted his eyes just enough to see her silhouette. The red light framed her form, making her look like a dark god standing above a broken man. A guard moved closer, raising a staff again. Queen Zainara raised one clawed hand. The guard froze. She circled Elias slowly, studying him as one might study a wounded animal. Her gaze lingered on his blood, his torn uniform, the slight tremor in his shoulders. "This," she said, gesturing to the hall, "was meant to be a celebration." Her tone carried false disappointment. "An alliance," she continued, "between the Thaurix Empire and a young species that dared to dream above its place." She stopped directly in front of him. "But dreams," she said softly, "do not change reality." With a sudden motion, she grabbed his chin and forced his head up. Pain shot through his jaw and neck. His eyes met hers. Up close, her eyes were vast and empty, reflecting his battered face back at him. She searched his expression, waiting for fear, for pleading, for surrender. She found none. Elias' breathing was slow and controlled. His eyes were tired but clear. That disturbed her. "You came into my empire," she said, her grip tightening, "and you dared to hide secrets." Elias swallowed, his throat burned. "We hid nothing," he said quietly. The Queen's grip snapped his head to the side. The force sent pain flashing through his skull. Laughter erupted again. "Lies," she hissed. "Your kind always lies." She released him, letting his head fall forward again. Images flickered into the air above the floor. Holographic symbols and data spun slowly, glowing red. Ship schematics, energy readings, human code fragments. Evidence, the Queen declared, of human deceit. Elias stared at the images, his heart sank. He recognized the designs. They were human. But they were old, broken, incomplete. "This data," Elias said, forcing himself to speak clearly, "was stolen from us decades ago. It was never hidden. We shared it freely during first contact." Queen Zainara's eyes narrowed. "And yet," she said, "it was found within restricted Thauric space." She leaned closer. "You expect me to believe that is coincidence?" Elias looked around the hall. Every face was turned against him. This was never a trial. It was a performance. He understood then. The alliance had never been real. The Queen had already decided. Humans were useful only as an example. A lesson. A guard stepped forward and slammed the staff into Elias' side. The pain stole his breath. He gasped, body curling inward. "Silence," the Queen said. The guard stepped back. Queen Zainara raised her voice so all could hear. "Let the galaxy witness what happened when a lesser species forgets its place." A murmur of approval swept through the court. Elias' mind drifted despite the pain. He thought of Earth, of blue skies and open oceans, of cities filled with noise and life, of people who argued, who fought, who failed, but who always stood back up. Humans had once knelt before kings, before empires, before gods. They had always risen. Another blow struck his back. He nearly collapsed again, hands scraping against the stone. Blood pooled beneath him now. Still, he did not scream. Queen Zainara noticed. She stopped packing. Slowly, she turned back toward him. "Why," she asked, "do you remain silent?" Elias breathed deeply. Each breath hurt. "Because," he said, voice hoarse, "you already decided my fate." She crouched before him, bringing her face close to his. "Wise," she said mockingly, "then accept it." She studied him again, more closely this time. Something was wrong. Humans begged, they cried, they broke. This one did not. His silence was not empty, it was waiting. "Look at you," she said, "bleeding, alone, your fleet powerless beyond my borders, your world weak and far away." She smiled, sharp and cruel. "You are nothing." Elias slowly lifted his head. His face was bruised and bloodied. His eyes were red with pain. But he smiled. It was small, faint. But it was real. The Queen froze. The court went still. Her smile vanished. "Why," she snarled, "do you smile while dying?" Elias met her gaze. "Because," he whispered, "you think this is the end." For the first time, doubt flickered across her face. She rose sharply and stepped back. "Enough," she snapped. "Take him away, keep him alive." A pause. "I want him to watch what comes next." Guards grabbed Elias by the arms and dragged him across the floor. His blood smeared into long dark streaks behind him. As they pulled him toward the exit, pain blurred his vision. His body felt distant, heavy. But his mind was clear. Deep beneath his torn uniform, pressed against his chest, a hidden implant warmed. A final protocol activated. A signal, old and simple, slipped free into the void. No words. No threat. Only truth. Earth betrayed. Protocol Iron Dawn active. Far beyond the Thaurix system, in the quiet dark between stars, something answered. The Queen returned to her throne, unaware. Above the crimson-lit hall, the stars outside began to move. Slowly, deliberately, and for the first time in centuries, the Thaurix Empire stood on the edge of fear. The chamber where they kept Captain Ilia's rook was dark. The walls were smooth metal, curved inward, glowing faintly with the same red light that filled the throne hall. The air smelled sharp and cold. Gravity felt heavier here, pressing down on his broken body. Ilias lay on the floor. His hands were bound behind his back. His uniform was torn and soaked with blood. Every breath sent pain through his ribs. His vision faded in and out, but he forced himself to stay awake. He needed to see. Outside the cell, Thaurix guards stood silent. They did not speak to him. To them, he was already dead, just not yet finished. Time passed slowly. Somewhere far beyond the walls of the Thaurix capital, stars burned in silence. Ships drifted. Empires watched their borders. And humanity listened. On Earth, the signal arrived without sound. No alarm rang. No public warning was given. The message reached places buried deep beneath cities and oceans. Old rooms, forgotten bunkers, systems untouched for generations. The message was short. Earth betrayed. Protocol Iron Dawn active. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the world changed. In quiet rooms filled with screens and dust, lights turned on. Ancient machines woke from sleep. Men and women who had sworn oaths long ago stood up from their desks. Government stepped aside. There were no speeches. There was no debate. Only action. Back in the Thaurix capital, Queen Zainara stood on her balcony, gazing out at the stars. She felt pleased, satisfied. The human envoy was broken. The galaxy had watched. Fear would spread. Obedience would follow. She turned to one of her commanders. "Prepare the fleets," she said. "We will move on Earth slowly. I want them to suffer." The commander hesitated. "My queen," he said carefully, "our outer sensors have detected movement." She did not turn. "Human ships?" she asked, amused. "No," the commander replied, "not yet." That caught her attention. She faced him fully. "Explain." The commander swallowed. "Several unregistered vessels have appeared at the edge of our space. Their design does not match known human craft." Queen Zainara narrowed her eyes. "Destroy them." The commander bowed and left. Moments later, alarms echoed through the capital. Not loud, not panicked. Confused. Queen Zainara turned back to the stars. One of the distant lights vanished. Then another. She frowned. Reports flooded in. Outer defense stations went dark without warning. No distress calls, no explosions. They simply stopped existing. The Queen's claws tightened against the railing. "This is not possible," she muttered. Back in his cell, Ilias felt a change. The air vibrated faintly. A low hum passed through the walls. It was distant but real. He smiled despite the pain. The guards noticed. One of them stepped closer, gripping his weapon. "You find this amusing, human," the guard hissed. Ilias did not answer. The hum grew stronger. Across the Thaurix Empire, panic began to spread. Human ships finally appeared on scanners. They did not form fleets. They did not announce themselves. They simply arrived. Their hulls were dark and smooth, swallowing light instead of reflecting it. Their engines made no visible flame. They moved with calm precision, ignoring all hails. Thauric's weapons fired. Human shields did not flare. The shots vanished. One by one, Thauric's warships were disabled, not destroyed, power cut, weapons frozen, crews left alive drifting helplessly in space. Commanders across the Empire began to understand. The humans had been pretending. In the throne room, Queen Zainara raged. "Bring me the human," she commanded, "now." Elias was dragged from his cell once more. He could barely walk, his legs trembled, blood still flowed from old wounds, but his eyes were steady. They brought him before the throne. The court was no longer confident. Whispers filled the hall, fear clung to the air. Queen Zainara descended the steps again, but this time her movements were sharp. "What have you done?" she demanded. Elias raised his head. "We stopped asking," he said quietly. Her eyes flashed. "You think this gives you power?" she snarled. "I can still kill you." "Yes," Elias replied, "you can." He paused. "But then you would never hear the truth." She hesitated. That hesitation spread through the room. Elias continued, his voice calm. "We came to you because we believed the galaxy could be better," he said. "We offered medicine, food, knowledge, not because we were weak, but because we chose restraint." The queen laughed, but it sounded thin. "You call this restraint," she said, gesturing to the chaos beyond the walls. "This," Elias said, "is defense." A screen flared to life behind him. Human fleets filled the stars. Thauric's world stood surrounded. Supply lines were cut. Communication hubs were silent. Not destroyed. Controlled. A Thauric's elder fell to his knees. "This cannot be," he whispered. "They were primitives." Elias turned slightly, addressing the room. "Humans learned long ago," he said, "that survival does not belong to the strongest. It belongs to those who adapt." Queen Zainara stepped forward. "In this," she demanded, "call them off." Elias shook his head slowly. "I cannot." Her claws trembled. "For centuries," Elias continued, "you ruled through fear, through humiliation, through blood." He met her eyes. "Today that ends." Silence fell. The queen's voice dropped. "What do you want?" Elias considered her. "We want choice," he said. "Freedom for your slaves, an end to forced tribute, and your empire dismantled." Her eyes burned. "And if I refuse?" Elias looked away toward the stars. "Then we will still leave you alive," he said, "so you can remember." The queen recoiled as if struck. She reached for him. He stepped back. "You said I was not worthy to touch you," he said calmly. Her hand fell. Hours later, the war was over. No worlds burned. No species erased. Chains were broken, borders redrawn, power returned to those who had never known it. Human ships withdrew as quietly as they had arrived. Elias stood on the deck of a human vessel, wrapped in bandages, staring out at space. A young officer approached him. "Sir," she asked softly, "were you afraid?" Elias nodded. "Yes," he said. He took a slow breath. But fear has never stopped humans. Behind them, the stars shone on a galaxy that would never forget what happened when humanity was betrayed. And far away, on a silent throne, an alien queen finally understood the cost of underestimating Earth.